You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Hi. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, being it's Good Friday, Passover week, coming up on Easter, for those of us that celebrate, we look back at the Bible and we think about what our ancestors went through. And what Jesus endured and what the Hebrew slaves endured, and then not only the Hebrew slaves, but also slavery throughout our history, and I always use these holidays to teach the kids about human behavior and how they could very easily do this again, and after what we saw with Hamas attacking Israel and then taking hostages and then making them slaves and raping them and torturing them and enslaving them. When I hear people talk about, slavery and that was back then. And I don't want people letting their guard down. Slavery can happen again. It's already happening. We have sex slaves. We have, trafficking. We have slavery already in society. And I think people are letting their guards down because they think, well, this was just a Bible story, or, well, Martin Luther King helped, the civil rights movement, and it's not going to happen again. And unfortunately, humans haven't changed. When you go back, so the Hebrews were enslaved. The Hebrews, apparently, there was, a good relationship with the Egyptians. Then eventually the Egyptians got, at the time, intimidated. This was, when trying to think how many years, I apologize, because the Hebrews were enslaved for about 400 years, but that started, I believe, I apologize, which BC, I don't have the year that happened, so I apologize. But the Hebrews ended up being enslaved for about 400 years until finally God tells Moses, get them out of there. Talk to Ramses II, let my people go. And then we had the 10 plagues and all that, and we discussed the story of Passover. But when I look at what's like we're being told, and I'm hearing that even in schools now, there's this huge anti-Semitism and racist and bigotry that's brewing again against Jews, against Latinos, against Black Americans, and I'm like, you guys are seeing the signs. These are individuals who want to hate, and the idea that, well, this was Egypt back in the olden days, or this was, the Holocaust back in the 30s. And we're seeing people still feel that sort of behavior is warranted. Like I guess in some schools, they're talking about how Israel are colonizers. And I mean, when you look at the map of the Middle East, you see this huge map of all the Middle Eastern countries and the little baby sliver of Israel. And you're trying to make an argument that Israel is the oppressor of this whole Middle Eastern region. Come on, man. But the fact that there are people that feel that way, and there are people that want to bring on the hate and have Israel annihilated, or have individuals, categorized as beneath them, or there being supremacy, or there be, it's frightening that happens. And a lot of us, we don't, we're able to distract ourselves. See, in the olden days, you couldn't distract yourselves. I mean, this is the news of the day. This is what's happening. So you see, your brethren go through this, and you can't. But nowadays we have distractors. So if somebody doesn't want to know what happened to the Hamas hostages, or what happened to Black Americans, or what happened to the LGBTQIA plus community, or what happened, they just go and turn to their computers or their smartphones, and they distract themselves. Meanwhile, the evils that be are growing and growing and and saying, we can take advantage of this complacency, of this lack of caring. My boys, who I never thought would ever witness what my family witnessed in the Holocaust, saw what happened with Hamas in 2023, and that persisted until finally the remaining living hostages got to come home. But they're seeing all this anti-Jew, black, anti everything sentiment, and they're like, okay, I thought, this was supposed to be more of a, world that has progressed, that has overcome adversity, that has learned we don't treat people poorly. And instead, it's the same behavior, different century, different millennium. Just it's unfortunately something that we're not going to be able to overcome. So, in terms of hoping humans become decent again. And I think back, if I was a slave in Egypt, I think back going, well, first, I would go tell him to blank himself if he tried to whip me, and I would have this. In fact, it's funny because Eddie Murphy did something very similar in one of his, he's like, a lot of my friends are like, oh, nobody would have ever told me, to pick cotton. I would have done this and this. And then, he talks about how the first person who said that got killed. And then everybody else is like, keep that away from me. I'll do what you say. And so we think, here being in our comfortable air-conditioned or heated rooms, we'll be able to take them on. We'll be able to do this. And unfortunately, when the people come with the guns or they come with their groups or they have numbers bigger than you, they could very easily oppress you. They could very easily enslave you. And I don't want to be sitting there saying, here we are in 2026, that some of our communities could become slaves again. But if nobody talks about it, people are going to just go about their daily business. Meanwhile, there's these growing movements, and they're growing, that are very anti-groups. And it's not just anti-Jew. And so, be aware and stand up against hate, because people aren't changing. But we could change the way we approach it and allow people to be, to try to hurt others. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. The 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So one of my listeners who was listening to the show, I know, there's 5 of you out there, I guess. Thank you. But one asked, how do you then prepare for your AI doctor or AI in medicine? What should we be thinking about now? Which is a fantastic question. So what I was talking about a few days ago, and I've been talking about a lot on the show, is how I think, in Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg said that one person with AI could replace entire teams. So we're going to see this with medicine. Quickly going to Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg made some comments in January how they're going to reshape Meta. And he said, we're starting to see projects that used to require big teams now be accomplished by a single very talented person. So using AI, they can then let go of a lot of people if they have that person overseeing the AI. And so I have predicted time and time again, which I think we all can see the writing on the wall, that's how a lot of medicine is going to be delivered, where you have a doctor overseeing it, because it's still going to be a long time before the lawyers are going to not want somebody whose head has to roll. So there's always going to have to be somebody at the helm so that if anything does go wrong with the computer or the AI, there's a human or an entity that could be sued. And so in medicine, they will have to have somebody and their license. And I'm starting to see jobs like this where they want you to be the director. They want you to be the overseer because they need your license. And I know there's a lot of lucrative jobs out there, but no, I'm fine in radio because I do not want, to be liable at all for any of these computers making mistakes. And as I told you guys when I opened the show earlier today, I had a job interview to review medical AI, and it was done by AI. And it was a very nice process, but there were issues where I started answering a question and it immediately answers my question for me. And it was awkward because I was like, okay, I thought you were answering the questions, and I answered the question. It actually guessed my answer correctly. So then when it answered the question, I was like, exactly. Thank you. There's issues still with this, but in terms of medicine, how these companies are going to save money is you input your medical condition. This was actually trialed about 15 years ago in the UK, where you put in your blood pressure. It doesn't test your blood pressure. You just put it in, say, this is my blood pressure. This is my latest kidney status. This is my this, I had an exam a year ago. Give me my blood pressure medicine. And the computer kicks out a prescription. Now, anybody asking for high blood pressure medicine should also have an eye exam, should have their kidneys always watched, should have their heart examined, we should be looking at blood flow. How I learned medicine was very comprehensive. Can't believe people are not getting physical exams when they have high blood pressure or diabetes and getting treated online. But that's where medicine is going because that's what people want. Where there is demand, there's going to be supply. So now you're like, well, wait a second. So what about these nephrologists? These nephrologists, do they do procedures? Not many of them, no. But they manage your kidney function. They try to save your kidneys. Well, what if a computer program can do that? I don't think a computer program could do that as well as human instinct. But now you have nephrologists who could be at risk with their jobs because if it's based on creatinine clearances and renal function and what medicines or what could they be doing to hurt their kidneys, a computer program is going to try and replicate that. And same thing now with primary care. You would think there's no way a computer or AI will be able to replicate a primary care providing office. It's already doing it. Patients are typing into their telemedicine company, I have this. They answer a whole bunch of questions and they upload a photo. Now, there's a human still on the other side looking at those. But it's just a matter of minutes where society is going to say, do you really need the doctor to agree with the AI recommended diagnosis? And once a company sees that doctors are agreeing with the AI recommended diagnosis 90+% of the time, they're going to say, all right, we're going to just hire one doctor. You just oversee all this, make sure the software is working well. If there's a question, you handle it. And now all these other doctors that have been answering these questions online get canned. So you as a patient, what do you do if your doctor is going to be online? And many of you are already seeing that. You call up your insurance company. You say, I'm not feeling well. Where do I go? And then they give you a 1-800 number. And you're like, no. What facility do I go to? They say you first go here. Now, this isn't anything new. I remember working in an urgent care in the early 2000s, and patients were coming in, with full-on codes and full-on cardiac arrhythmias and all that. And I was an ER doc in my previous experience. And so for me to do urgent care, I was comfortable with those cases, but I'm like, you need to go to the ER. And they were telling me that their insurance made them come here first. And that if you think they need to go to an ER, then call 911. Well, I go, I got to stabilize your rhythm first. I'm like, why aren't you going? Because already companies were trying to find ways to save money in the 2000s. That's one of the reasons why we eventually did get Obamacare, because it was getting expensive. We had older individuals and we had the ability to save lives and not let people pass like they used to in previous decades. And so that's nothing new. But what's going to be new is you're not going to be offered an in-person doctor, and it's going to be obstacle after obstacle after obstacle till you can see a human. Now, what are we doctors doing about it? I'm not impressed, because I had a patient who called me yesterday saying, now the patient could have been lying. We do have full of poop-itis, suffering patients where they're full of it. But the patient said that they were tired, sick, not feeling well, and they went to the urgent care, and the urgent care did a chest x-ray, said they were fine, and didn't give them any medicine. And I'm like, well, did they swab you for flu or COVID? You had a sore throat? Did they check you for mono? They did nothing. So they just did a chest x-ray. I go, what did your exam show? They said they didn't examine me. Now, the patient could have been lying, but I'm giving the patient the benefit of the doubt, because I have heard that many of you guys go into an urgent care or even a primary care office, and nobody is using their stethoscope on you or examining you. If that's the case, then we doctors did this to ourselves. And I don't know how the hell you guys are practicing medicine, because we would get reamed if we did any half-assed physical exam. So when I tell patients, I'm glad you called the telemedicine company, but this is going to require an exam. You need to go and have an exam. You need to go see your doctor. And when they respond to me saying, but my doctor doesn't examine me, I'm now more inclined to believe them. But no wonder it's going to be more going towards AI. So what should you do? All right. I mean, if you're like, this is not where I want to be, this is not what I want to do, I don't want to be managed, I'm worried about cancer in the family, I'm worried about things. Well, what you're going to have to do is secure your place with a medical provider. Now, you're going to have to get a primary care provider, and you're going to have to choose a primary care provider where there's also other providers, because I'm hearing that medical providers are leaving practices left and right. Your doctor of 20, 25 years that saw your whole family, they don't exist anymore, because apparently people are getting fired and hired left and right. So if you do lose your doctor, you're going to want to make sure that there's a partner that can see you. But make sure you stay active with a practice so that you at least do have access. We're seeing a lot of pregnant women that and we saw this actually during the malpractice issues with OBs, where their medical malpractice went so high that as long as they delivered under a certain amount of babies, their malpractice rates wouldn't double. So now there were all these women trying to find an OB, and the OB's like, sorry, I'm at my limit. I can't, otherwise I have higher malpractice, can't do it. And OBs had to deliver at least 4 people a month just to break even And it was just not, that's why a lot of family doctors didn't deliver babies too. I was trained to deliver babies, do C-sections, all of that. But the malpractice was very cost prohibitive for that. But right now we're having a lot of women where they are now pregnant. And they call up the telemedicine company. I'm like, this is wonderful. So contact your gynecologist, let them know the happy news. And hopefully they're an OB-GYN and I don't have one. I'm like, well, who's been doing your pap smears? I don't have one. So what you need to do ahead of time is if there's any medical screens or things you think you need, get them done now and secure yourself a visit with an in-person provider. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret.
Powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. I got to tell you, I like RFK Jr. and some of his campaigns. He now wants to take on, he's wanted to do this for a while, but the microplastics. And you know, I understand that, you know, a lot of people are critical of him and some of his, you know, vaccine stances, but I really credit the guy for doing what doctors and public officials are always supposed to do and go, let's look at the why, you know, why we're having chronic disease in children and why and what are kids being exposed to in terms of ingredients and fake food and plastics. And why don't we, you know, look and make sure that whatever our kids are being, you know, I mean, somebody's got to get on top of this. Just like somebody's got to get on top of border security. Somebody's got to get on top of our rising debt. Somebody's got to get on top of our failing education system. And so it looks like the HHS is working on that. And so the Department of Health and Human Services and the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, have announced a massive joint effort to measure, understand, and remove microplastics and pharmaceuticals from the nation's water supply and also hopefully the human body. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has detailed the urgency of the growing health crisis during a press event. They have cited dramatic increases in plastic concentrations in human organs. If you remember last year, there was a study saying that we have an average of a teaspoonful of plastic in our brains. How is that helping us fight dementia or stroke? We're being surrounded by too much plastic. And I've talked about it on my show for years, but it's really nice to see an administration try to tackle it. According to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he says this is not a rare exposure. This is baseline. Noting that researchers have found plastic particles, according to Fox News, in human blood, lung tissue, liver, kidneys, and every single sample of tested human placentas. He says, we are not dealing with a distant or theoretical risk. We are dealing with a measurable and growing presence inside the human body, and the signal is getting stronger. He added that the concentration of plastics in the human brain has spiked by 50% since 2016, amounting to roughly a spoonful of plastic in every human brain. Kennedy also highlighted a clinical study revealing that patients with microplastics detected in their arterial plaquing face a 450% higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and death within 3 years. So not only is sugar and cholesterol clogging your arteries, but also this plastic can. He said, we do not ignore signals like that. We have to investigate. So what are they doing? So they are launching the STOMP initiative. STOMP is Systematic Targeting of Microplastics Initiative. It's a national program valued between 134 million and 144 million, according to Fox News, and it aims to precisely measure microplastics in the body, track how they cause biological harm, and to safely remove and get the plastic out of our brains and out of our blood vessels. And that's going to be tricky. If you have plastic accumulation in your body, how do we get rid of it? We need to figure that out because we are surrounded by plastic. Dr. Alicia Jackson, who leads the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, said the program will develop a clinical test for microplastics that takes less than 15 minutes and costs less than $50 so that every American could have access. She says STOMP will do in 5 years what the entire field, I apologize here, now my computer shifted, sorry about that, my computer really stinks. She says STOMP will do in 5 years what the entire field has been unable to do for decades. This field has been working in the dark long enough, and STOMP turns on the lights. Now, Lee Zeldin is working on the EPA environmental front. He announced the release of the draft of 6th contaminant candidate lists, which include 75 chemicals, 4 chemical groups, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances like the PFASs, along with disinfection byproducts and 9 microbes. And Lee Zeldin has said for too long, Americans have been ignored as they sound the alarm about plastics in their drinking water. That ends today. By placing microplastics on the contaminant candidate list, for the first time ever, the EPA will follow the science, pursue answers, and will hold ourselves to the highest standards to protect the health of Americans. So additionally, the EPA has also released human health benchmarks for nearly 400 pharmaceuticals known to or have potential to occur in the drinking water. So the antibiotics, the antidepressants, hormones, these are things that you are getting exposed to in our drinking water. So they say the benchmarks are not necessarily enforceable regulations. He did describe them as a vital resource to empower local decision makers to evaluate risks and protect their communities and let them decide if they're going to, like California had spearheaded red dyes and non-healthy ingredients in foods. So Dr. Leonardo Tresande, a pediatrician and director at NYU Grossman School of Medicine, said just from the few chemicals that we know about, the United States healthcare cost contribution of plastic exposure right now is $250 billion. 1.2% of our gross domestic product goes out the window as a result of toxic exposures that arrive from plastic. They say we're probably underestimating the scope of the problem. And so part of the problem we have is this. I know many of you are thinking, Dr. Dahlia, I am avoiding drinking water, the city or county's drinking water, because I don't want to get other people's medication into my drinking water. So then where are you getting your water from? Well, I'm getting my water from my plastic bottle. So I don't have to have the chemicals. Now, these plastic bottled water, these bottles of water that we're drinking, are they gleaned of pharmaceuticals? Where are these companies getting their water? I know we like to think that somebody from the company is standing there with your bottle by a waterfall with natural spring water, and they're filling it up, and then they're running it through some filters, and then giving you that single bottle that they took from the waterfall. But somebody better be looking at a lot of the water that we're drinking, and where is it coming from? Because does it also have contaminants? Not to mention, if you're drinking water from plastic, now you're exposed to plastic, and this plastic leaches. I live in Southern Nevada, and I tell the family, get every water bottle or soda can, and you shouldn't be drinking soda, but get it out of the car because the heat causes chemical reactions and leaching. Never drink water from a hot plastic water bottle because you now have plastic in there. And so we're being exposed to plastics all the time. We should be looking at our CPAP, sleep apnea masks, and making sure that as the air is blowing and we're getting our continuous positive airway pressure, that we're not getting plastic pieces blown in. We need CPAP, and we need sleep apnea treatment. But again, it's being used with plastic, right? We use plastic. It's pliable. Night guards. A lot of us, like, including myself, I have chewed, I don't know how this has happened, but my teeth have been ground down to little, you can barely, even see my teeth by my gums. And so I'm wearing night guards. But apparently I grind so much on these night guards that I could taste plastic in the morning. So I'm now ingesting plastic every night because of my night guards. So we have to really look at what we're doing. And so, seeing that the concentration of plastics is rising in people's brains and it could cause heart attacks, we do need to do something about it. And I'm not saying previous administrations blew off our health. Michelle Obama worked to get us moving and things like that. And, they have tried to make, school lunches more, healthy, although we found that a lot of the kids were throwing all that food away. So we have to figure out, we got to start early, and we have to inform parents to not give kids these sugary foods early on. Maybe we have to look at advertising, because these kids are watching all these, fruit roll up and gummy candies and things like that and Skittles, and then they want that, and it's addictive. And we probably should have a no candy rule except for Halloween or Easter. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did, and just maybe someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So there's, I guess, another new weight loss pill. Now that we have Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Mounjaro in terms of injectables, many people are not liking the injectables. They're also finding they're pretty expensive, and they're hoping that one way to get the cost down is to have daily pills. People like taking diet pills. And so the companies have heard your requests, and they are, doing pills. And Foundayo or Orforglipron is a once daily pill developed by Eli Lilly for lasting weight loss. They say it is the only type that can be taken any time of day without food or water restrictions. Now, how did people do on this Foundeo? They lost an average of 27.3 pounds, and that's on their highest dose. Eli Lilly also makes Zepbound and Mounjaro. And so they know what they're doing when it comes to these medications. But one thing that nobody's really talking about, even is that, okay, the average participant lost 27 pounds. It's fantastic. Losing 27 pounds can help a lot of people in terms of their diabetes, sleep apnea, metabolic disorders, heart health, cancer risk. Losing 27 pounds is fantastic. But many patients need to lose more than 27 pounds. And we're putting people on these medications quicker than they could ask for it. There's all these microdosing commercials and all that. And, some people are saying, I lost 40 pounds. Some people are saying they lost more. That's great. But on average, we're seeing in the 20, 30 pound realm. And now we're criticizing these skinny people who want to be bikini bodied by June, going for these medications. But can you blame them? If these medications are helping them lose the average 25 pounds, that's right up their alley. But in medicine and in the media, okay, the problem we have, not only is, many of us could lose 20 pounds, but it's the ones that need to lose 100 pounds. And what I'm seeing, which is a problem, is we are falsely giving false hope to some of these extremely obese individuals, thinking their 25-pound weight loss average medication is going to do the trick. And then when it doesn't do the trick, or it's too expensive, or it starts to not wear off, but you don't start to notice any more weight loss with it, and you start to plateau, it's kind of risky for somebody who's 280 pounds or 300 pounds. Now, I don't mind patients wanting to try it. There might be the select few that can lose 80 to 100 pounds on these medications. If you are doing diet, exercise, you are incorporating it into a whole new plan, and it is giving you the strength and the grit to plow through a certain diet plan, all the power to you. But if you're thinking that all these medications that are being advertised are going to turn your body around, you're getting you're going to be in culture shock. You're going to be upset, and you're going to be frustrated. And so we're seeing now, what are we looking at? 20% of the adult population has been trying these medications. Meanwhile, diabetics are like, every time my husband needs to get a refill of his medication, they're like, out of stock. Like, can you guys make sure the diabetics can get it first? Come on, man. People with diabetes who need these medications, that's what they were originally intended for. But I understand everybody's trying to get ready for summer body. I get that. But when you read over and over again, 20-pound weight loss, 10% of their body weight, they're advertising this medication helped you lose 10% of your body weight. Okay, well, if you're 200 pounds, how much is 10%? 20 pounds. Now, again, 20 pounds is good. If everybody could lose 20 pounds, we would do a lot for our health and for healthcare costs. But I fear the backside of it, where I'm having patients go, I'm not losing the weight I need to on this medicine, and I'm now $6,000 in the hole. I know. It's because you fell for marketing. And your medical provider, have you talked to your doctor about this? I don't have a doctor. Well, then where did you get your medicine? Online. So be careful. Now, again, if your goal is 25, 30 pounds, and even if your goal is higher, still make sure there is a weight management program. You know, with smoking cessation, they have patches. And these patches for nicotine, which we're all aware of, you know, even the packages don't say just slap the patch on and go about your merry way. They say you need to be a part of a nicotine withdrawal program. You need to have the training and the counseling and the support. This is what needs to be, you know, this is sadly what needs to be identified and understood. So, listen, I'm all for people losing weight. I love that these companies are coming up with medications. I think it's fantastic. But just, you know, with a very kind of raised eyebrow, look at what they're actually saying. And yes, losing 27 pounds is fantastic. But if you have family members who, you know, can't spend that kind of money to just lose 27 pounds, they might have to look at other options. What are other options? Well, bariatric surgery, gastric sleeves. Now, I'm not a big fan of, you know, surgery when you could do something pharmaceutically, but I got to tell you, I have seen amazing work and amazing weight loss. That sort of drastic weight loss people need with the gastric sleeve. The gastric sleeve is where they remove that hanging pouch from the stomach so you don't have to have a Roux-en-Y and all the plumbing of your intestines, you know, rerouted. We're just going to remove the hanging pouch. Your stomach is smaller. You're going to become more full. Unfortunately, I have seen people still gain weight after their gastric bypass. And I've seen people go from being super skinny to gaining weight. If you haven't changed your habits, if you still get hungry, if you still have an addiction to sugar and carbs, or you're still not exercising, you unfortunately are going to gain the weight back. Same with these shots. If we found a way for permanent weight loss, we'd do it. I know a lot of people have tried liposuction. No, because the fat is going to just deposit in other areas. Now, I understand sculpting, you know, and trying to get the curves you want by removing some excess rolls. I get that, and love handles. But the fat is going to deposit where it wants to deposit. And I'm seeing some fat necks in some of these individuals who are getting a lot of lipo. So we have not yet come to that point, we need to, where we could really look at food and junk food and alcohol aversely. I mean, yeah, there's hand abuse and things like that for alcohol, but we just haven't gotten to that point where we have something you could safely do long term, where you could say, I'm not going to put that in my body and I'm going to lose weight. But we do have some medicines out there that are helping curb some of that. Just be aware that these are marketing campaigns. And, you know, make sure it's the right fit for you. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.